Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're lacing up our metaphorical trainers, you could say.
Deliverable trainers.
Yeah, we're taking an in-depth look at the brand new Garmin Forerunner 570. Now, you might see that 570 number and think, okay, simple update to the 265.
Right. Seems logical.
But our dive into the sources suggests it's actually aiming a bit higher, positioning itself as something, well, a bit more premium, especially if you're serious about your running or, multi-sport training.
Exactly. And we're here to give you the inside track, help you figure out if this watch actually deserves a spot on your wrist.
So for this exploration, we've gathered some really useful stuff.
Yeah, we've got the official Garmin product pages for both the Forerunner 265 and this new 570, plus their comparison page, which is handy. And we watch a hands-on video from the Chase the Summit YouTube channel. Good visuals there.
Always helpful.
And importantly, a really detailed review from the 5K Runner website. That's a great source, especially for, dedicated runners, triathletes, people really into the tech side of fitness.
Right, they really get into the weeds. So our mission today is basically to unpack all of this, synthesize it, and give you a clear picture of the 570, what's new, what's good, maybe what's not so good.
The capabilities, the strengths, the limitations, the whole package.
Okay, so let's start with where this thing actually fits. In the grand Garmin lineup, the 5K Runner guys had a really interesting take.
They did. How did they put it?
They said medium quality materials, advanced plus running features, core plus triathlon features, and advanced Garmin smart features, kind of specific categories.
Okay, yeah.
But the real kicker for me, the bit that stood out, was their bottom line. It feels more like a pared back 970 rather than an upgraded FR265.
Ah, okay. That definitely changes things, doesn't it?
It really does. It reframes how you look at it immediately.
Yeah, that perspective from the 5K Runner is crucial. It suggests this isn't just like a small step up from the 265. By comparing it to the 970, the higher-end one, they're hinting that Garmin's bringing more advanced stuff down,
Right.
maybe bridging that gap between the mid-range 265 and their top-tier watch.
It points to maybe a more nuanced strategy, catering to slightly different groups within that sort of serious athlete market.
Exactly. Different needs, maybe slightly different budgets.
So speaking of that step up, let's talk physicals. The feel, the look. First thing that jumps out is the bezel. It's aluminum on the 570.
Yeah, compared to the fiber-reinforced polymer on the 265, definitely sounds more premium.
The Chase the Summit video mentioned that too, that it gives it a nicer feel.
And the screen's bigger too, right?
Yep. Upgraded display, it's gone to 1.4 inches from 1.3 on the 265.
Okay, not huge, but noticeable.
And the resolution's bumped up 454 by 454 pixels. Plus, the 5K Runner specifically called out the slimmer bezels.
Ah, so you're getting more screen, less border. Makes sense. That gives you a sharper, more immersive AMOLED display overall.
Of course, that does mean the watch itself is slightly bigger, slightly heavier than the 265. A little trade-off there.
Always is, isn't it? And under the hood, there's the new heart rate sensor, Gen 5.
Sounds good. But here's a twist. Both the 5K Runner and Chase the Summit pointed this out. The ECG function. It's disabled on the 570.
Oh, really? So even with a new sensor, no ECG?
Apparently not. Seems that's still exclusive to the 970. Makes you wonder why, right?
It does. It's an interesting product strategy point. Maybe the Gen 5 sensor helps with baseline heart rate accuracy, unlocks other things like skin temp.
Yeah, we'll get to skin temp.
But keeping ECG on the 970 is like a deliberate choice to push people at the range if they really want that specific health feature.
Or maybe it's just software locked. Who knows?
Could be. Could be hardware. Could be software. Hard to say without being inside Garmin.
Okay, let's shift gears. Some of the really new features. Interaction first. Big one here. Built-in speaker and microphone.
Right. That's a significant addition. Garmin's own pages and the 5K Runner mention this.
What does that actually let you do?
Well, taking calls on your wrist is the main one. Connected calls. Plus voice commands, maybe accessing your phone's voice assistant.
So more smartwatch-like stuff.
Exactly. It pushes the 570 beyond just being a pure sports watch. Imagine getting a quick call mid-run, answering without digging for your phone. That's pretty convenient.
Yeah, definitely.
And the 5K Runner also mentioned focus modes, so you can control notifications better, minimize distractions during workouts.
That's useful. Okay, health and wellness. There's something new called the Evening Report.
Ah, yes. Garmin mentioned it. Chase the Summit, too. It complements the morning report that's already there.
So what's the idea? Helps you wind down.
Pretty much. Gives you insights maybe about your sleep, upcoming stuff, weather, Kind of prepares you for the next day, helps with recovery planning,
Like a little nightly briefing. I like that.
and probably more significant, health-wise, is the new skin temperature sensor.
Right, you mentioned that. What's the benefit there?
Well, according to Garmin and the 5K runner, it allows for more sophisticated sleep tracking, and it boosts the women's health features.
How so?
It can help with more accurate period predictions and even give retrospective estimates of ovulation. That's pretty valuable info for, family planning or just understanding your body's cycles.
Okay, definitely adds another layer of health data. Now, let's talk training. Especially for the multi-sport folks, the triathletes listening, what's new for planning and analysis?
This is where it gets interesting. The 5K runner specifically highlighted the Garmin Triathlon Coach.
Triathlon coach, what does that entail?
They suggested it might mean improvements in the bike and run workout advice. Maybe more adaptive plans tailored for triathlon could be a big deal for triathletes.
Yeah, potentially.
And it's not just pre-made plans. You can now create your own custom multi-sport workouts in Garmin Connect, like really detailed ones.
Step-by-step stuff.
Exactly. Then execute them right on the watch.
Mm.
Transitions, specific intensities, the whole 9 yards. Essential if you're following a complex plan.
Okay, that's powerful.
Plus, the sheer number of other activity profiles now included is, well, it's huge. The 5K runner listed loads: duathlon, brick, swim run, obstacle racing, mountaineering, indoor climbing,
Wow.
even stuff like hunting, horseback riding, disc golf, and all sorts of biking, gravel, commuting, touring, BMX, kayaking, fishing, boating, winter sports like XC skate, skiing, ice skating.
They really threw the kitchen sink in there profile-wise.
Pretty much, even wellness things like mobility workouts, it really broadens the appeal way beyond just running and core triathlon.
Okay, so it seems like they're trying to cover almost any sport you might do. What about other specific new features? Anything else stand out?
Golfing. The 5K runner went into detail here. The 570 gets a really comprehensive set of golf features.
Like what? I'm not a golfer, so.
Yardage tracking, digital scorecard, stat tracking, auto shot detection, automatic course updates, green view with pin positioning, hazards, pinpointer for blind shots.
Okay, sounds pretty thorough.
Handicap scoring, round timer. It's compatible with their CT10 Club sensors. Works with the Garmin Golf app. Basically, it brings the Forerunner much closer to their dedicated approach golf watches.
Gotcha. Anything else new for, say, runners or navigation?
Yeah, a few things. Projected waypoint for navigation, and something called auto lap by timing gates.
Timing gates, like in a race.
Exactly. So the watch can automatically record your laps when you cross the official timing mats in a race. Pretty neat for accurate splits.
That is clever. Saves forgetting to hit the lap button.
And speaking of forgetting, there's also a suggested finish line feature. Chase the Summit highlighted this. If you cross a finish line and forget to stop your watch, it might prompt you.
Huh. Useful for those of us who collapse in a heap at the end.
And for training analysis, the 5K runner noted it now includes heat and altitude acclimation and load ratio.
More advanced metrics then.
Yeah, helping you see how you're adapting to conditions and managing your training load to avoid, overdoing it. Plus, the standard race time predictor is updated. And the YouTube video mentioned a new projected race predictor, looking further out based on how your training is trending. More data-driven guidance.
Seems like a theme. And you mentioned custom multi-sport workouts earlier, too.
Right. Garmin emphasizes that. Building those detailed step-by-step sessions for whatever combination of activities you need. Lots of flexibility there.
Okay, loads of features. But the big question for endurance folks, battery life. How does it stack up?
Yeah, critical point. Looking at Garmin specs and the 5K runner's comparison, it's a bit of a mixed bag.
How so?
Well, the 265 got, up to 13 days in smartwatch mode. The 570 is listed at 11 days. Still good, but less.
Okay. What about GPS?
GPS-only mode. The 570 gets around 18 hours. The 265 managed 20 hours.
So a slight decrease there, too?
Generally, yes. Although, interestingly, the 5K runner pointed out one scenario where it might be better: listening to music while using high-precision GPS.
Weird specific improvement.
Yeah. But for most other modes, it seems like a slight step down in battery life. The Chase the Summit reviewer speculated. Maybe it's the speaker, the microphone, that brighter display drawing more power.
Makes sense. All those new bits must cost something in terms of battery.
Stands to reason.
Okay, let's try and summarize the good stuff, the pros, based on all these new features. We've got the brighter AMOLED display.
Definitely a plus. Sharper, more vibrant.
The aluminum bezel, giving it that more premium feel.
Yep, he feels less plasticky, presumably.
The speaker and mic For calls and voice interaction, that's a big functional change.
Adds a whole new layer of smart capability.
The new Gen 5 heart rate sensor, even without ECG, brings skin temperature data.
Useful for sleep and women's health tracking.
The evening report, nice little addition for planning.
Complements the morning report.
Big one. Enhanced multi-sport features profiles and that Garmin triathlon coach potential.
Huge for triathletes, yeah. And swimmers, cyclists. Broader appeal.
New race features like auto lap by timing gates, suggested finish line.
Small things, but really thoughtful for race day.
And those comprehensive golfing features we talked about.
Yeah, a massive upgrade if you're a golfer.
Okay, so lots of positives, but let's flip it. Cons and limitations. What are the potential downsides?
Well, the most obvious one is price. It's going to cost more than the Forerunner 265. Both Chase the Summit and the 5K runner made that point.
Right. Expected with more features, but still a factor. What else?
The big one, especially highlighted by the 5K runner and the YouTube video. No onboard maps.
Still no maps. At this level.
Apparently not. And that's a major criticism. For a watch likely positioning itself above the 265, maybe nudging towards the 9XX series territory in features, lacking maps is noticeable.
Yeah, a lot of people rely on that for trail running, exploring new routes.
Exactly. Then there's the reduced battery life in most modes compared to the 265. We just covered that.
The trade-off for the new features.
And the disabled ECG, despite the new sensor, feels like something's being held back.
Yeah, a deliberate limitation, perhaps.
And one more practical point from Chase the Summit. That 18-hour GPS battery life. Might be cutting it fine for people doing very long ultramarathons.
Good point. 100-milers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, could be a concern there.
Let's circle back specifically to the 5K runners' overall take. They live and breathe this stuff, especially running and triathlon. What was their final verdict, sort of?
Their feeling seemed to be, look, this is a really capable feature-packed sports watch. Good for core triathlon stuff. But the lack of maps at this price point is, and I think they use the word, an annoyance, a significant omission.
An annoyance. Yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah, their perspective is really valuable for, someone listening who's deep into this. They speculated a bit on Garmin's strategy. Maybe this 570 creates a specific tier, leaving room for other models. But their disappointment about the maps, especially given the likely higher cost, really highlights what athletes expect now for navigation during training or races. They even sort of hinted it might make some people look at, say, an Apple Watch, even though those have different limitations for hardcore sports tracking.
Interesting comparison. It really shows that balancing act Garmin has, doesn't it? Features versus price versus what the competition is doing versus what dedicated athletes really need.
Absolutely. It's a tricky market.
So, wrapping this up, the Forerunner 570, it definitely brings a lot to the table. More premium feel, more smarts with the speaker manic, way more features, especially for multi-sport athletes.
No doubt. Lots of new capabilities.
It comes with a higher price tag, generally slightly lower battery life, and that big sticking point, still no onboard maps, which, as the 5K runner emphasized, feels like a miss for many potential users.
Precisely. So if you're listening and considering the 570, the key questions are really about your priorities.
Right. Like, are those new smart features, the nicer build, worth paying more for, and worth that slight battery hit in modes you use often?
And maybe the biggest one. How crucial are onboard maps for your training, your races, your adventures? Is that a deal breaker or just a nice to have?
It makes you think, doesn't it, about where wearables are going, this constant push for more smart features. How does that balance against core sport functions and, just lasting long enough?
Yeah. What becomes essential versus just extra? What features will define the next generation of watches for athletes at different levels?
Definitely food for thought. We really recommend you check out those detailed reviews online, especially the 5K runner's deep analysis to help you weigh it all up for yourself.
Absolutely. Form your own informed opinion.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Garmin Forerunner 570.